Charles had a really dark secret that he was hiding, and it was that he had actually just been arrested 6 days prior to this night where he was sitting at the bar with Jackie for stalking his ex-girlfriend, Caitlin Mathis. Caitlin was just 18 years old when she met Charles. He was 29 at the time, and Caitlin had just graduated high school. She knew pretty quickly that this was a bad vibe and not for her. However, Charles didn't take the breakup very well, and things began to escalate very quickly. After Caitlin broke up with Charles, Charles showed up to her dorm room, okay? Caitlin ended up calling the campus police, and they trespassed Charles from ever coming back to Caitlin's dorm. Even after that, Charles kept trying to contact Caitlin. Then, less than 3 months at this point, Charles once again showed up to Caitlin's dorm on campus. After he was arrested, Caitlin ended up getting a restraining order against him, and she prayed that she'd never be bothered by Charles again. But Charles continued to try to contact Caitlin, so the campus police went out to his house and arrested him again for stalking this time. This was Charles' third arrest in 14 days. Charles ended up bonding out of jail, and just 6 days later, this is when he met Jackie. She's going to this bar, actually thinking about getting a job there, and this guy who's handsome and charming strikes up a conversation with her, and she's talking to him, and she has no idea what he's been up to or what he's put Caitlin through. Surveillance footage shows the two of them chatting at this bar and then eventually leaving together. After leaving that bar, they went to another one, and then at around 11 p.m., they were seen on surveillance footage leaving together again. Then they were seen at a gas station. Sadly, this gas station footage would be the last time that Jackie was ever seen alive. The next morning, the maintenance workers for the city of Grapevine were told that there was smoke coming from Acorn Woods Park. When they got out to the park to check it out, this is where they found what appeared to be like a kiddie pool on fire with several human body parts inside. The maintenance workers put out the fire and they called 911. And when the police and the firefighters arrived, they confirmed that the parts that were in this kiddie pool on fire were indeed human and most likely female. The remains were taken to the morgue and they were further investigated. Now, at the same time all this was going on, reports started to come in that a junior named Jackie from the Texas Women's University hadn't been seen since the night before. So the medical examiner lifted fingerprints from the remains and confirmed that they were indeed Jackie's. And I mean, talk about Jackie's friends that noticed she didn't come home and immediately reported her missing. Like, more of this from young people looking out for each other. Despite the fact that Jackie's remains had been burned, she had been dismembered and she had sharp wounds to her abdomen that had been inflicted while she was still alive. It was also determined that Jackie had endured blunt force injuries to her head as well. And even worse, the medical examiner also determined that Jackie's chest had been opened and her heart was removed. Jackie's neck also showed signs that she had been shot with some sort of like item. And obviously, with all of this in mind, the medical examiner determined that Jackie's manner of death was indeed homicide. 4 days after Jackie's tragic passing, investigators went and picked up Charles for violating the restraining order that Caitlin had against him. They said that Charles had actually still been trying to contact Caitlin on social media using fake accounts. When they had Charles in custody, they decided this was a good time to ask him about Jackie. Now, at first, Charles pretended like he did not know who Jackie was and that he didn't meet her at all that night. So they told Charles that they saw him on surveillance footage, and all of a sudden, Charles remembered, you know what? I think I do remember that blonde-headed girl named Jackie. Meanwhile, as investigators were questioning Charles, search warrants were being conducted at his home. And by the end of the day, they had over 100 items that they entered into evidence against Charles. When the investigators searched outside of Charles' home, They saw a circle of dead grass in the backyard, which suggested to them that an object had been sat in that spot for a long period of time, and then it had been recently removed. You guys think like when you have a pool sitting in an area, a round pool, and then you remove the pool and there's no grass in that area. That's what they saw. So at this point, the highly skilled Texas Ranger Jim Holland got involved with Charles's interrogation, and he was a big-time criminal profiler. Jim told Charles all of the evidence that they had against him, which now also included surveillance footage of Charles purchasing a shovel at 4 a.m. the night of the incident. And by this point, Charles was admitting that things did not look too good for him. He said that he must have ended Jackie's life, but he just couldn't remember how or why. He said that he and Jackie had consensual relations in the backseat of his car that night. And as they were doing so, Charles said that Jackie asked him to place a zip tie around her neck and tighten it. Charles also said that he tried not to tighten it too tight, but things just got out of hand and Jackie stopped breathing. Charles said that he tried to give Jackie CPR, but it didn't work, and so then he panicked, and instead of calling 911, Charles said that he took Jackie back to his house where he dismembered her body and stuffed the parts into trash bags. He said that he grabbed the kiddie pool and he drove to the park where Jackie was eventually found. And this is when he put everything in the kiddie pool and set it on fire. Charles was asked why he took things this far when, according to him, Jackie's passing was just an accident. And Charles answered by saying that he was drunk and not thinking straight, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. It's fascinating that some of these people, and this isn't the only case that we have heard like this. There's been other cases where a woman goes off with a man and this type of thing happens. He dismembers her and then he says, oh, I just was drunk and I can't remember, and she got too wild in the bedroom and I couldn't contain myself and so I dismembered her. What? The Texas Ranger Jim Holland was absolutely convinced that Charles was a serial in the making, and I agree with Jim Holland on that. And even though Charles said that him and Jackie had slept together consensually, the medical examiner said that there was actually nothing to indicate that they actually had actually been intimate. So this made the investigators believe that Charles made this story up to explain why Jackie's DNA was found on zip ties in his home. The investigators also believe that Charles targeted Jackie because she looked quite similar to Caitlin, Charles's ex. And so they asked Charles if that was the case, and Charles seemed a bit surprised by the question, but he said no, that wasn't the case. The investigators still believe that this is exactly what happened. Not only did Caitlin and Jackie look similar, but the bar that Charles met Jackie at was directly across the street from the college that Caitlin went to. Apparently, Caitlin went to this bar quite often, so it's almost like he was sitting there hoping to run into Caitlin. Charles was officially arrested and charged with murder, and he pled not guilty. He received a life sentence plus 20 years, but he will be eligible for parole in 2048. Charles tried to appeal his conviction, but it was denied. Caitlin later came out and said that she actually received a friend request, get this, from Jackie's Facebook profile on the day after Jackie had passed. She believes that the friend request was actually from Charles using Jackie's phone. That gives me the complete heebie-jeebies that this guy did this, and then he has Jackie's phone and he's sending a friend request to Caitlin, still trying to get to her. On top of that, the day after Jackie's passing, a message was posted on her profile that said, "Never knew I could feel like this." It is believed that Charles did this as well. How bizarre and sick. Devastating, obviously, for Jackie and her family. And she was so innocent, and her intentions in life were so good, and she was working so hard, and for whatever reason, Caitlin knew very quickly that this was not one she could keep going back to, and it saved her life. And unfortunately, Jackie lost hers. Unreal.